Thank you. I appreciate that. See, I would have forgotten. Thanks everybody again. This is our fourth meeting. Hard to believe we're already on number 4. As you all saw, I think on the agenda, we're going to spend most of our time tonight talking about visioning. But I wanted to take a little bit of time to provide some updates on the engagement we've been doing and kind of remind everybody about where we are in the process, kind of your role overall, and take any questions that you might have. I know this is a lot to take in and it's a long process, so make sure we pause and kind of hear from you all. If there's questions about what we're doing or what's coming next, I want to leave time for that as well. So I'll stop sharing this for just a second. And just a reminder who I am, Liz Weigel. I'm the project manager for the city.
You're muted, Liz. For some reason, you muted yourself.
Okay, when I stopped sharing it, somehow.
That was my fault. I was trying to admit somebody and they got admitted, so I hit you and I couldn't unmute you. I'm so sorry.
Okay, well, no worries. Was just doing the introductions. I think everybody pretty much knows each other at this point. And I know it's hard for us to be doing this over Zoom, and I appreciate those of you that have done that vaccination verification. Again, it's not required for us to meet virtually, but to give us more opportunities to meet in person. For those of you who'd like to, I'd encourage you to go ahead and do that verification if you can. So again, we're gonna skip over everybody saying hi tonight, but make sure your name's right in the Zoom list. And I wanted to introduce Grace Herbison. She's actually from our consultant team, and she'll be helping, and it's taken a little bit of time to get them on board, but she'll be helping us with facilitation going forward. She'll be at our steering committee meetings, some of our public workshops, and her role, and I'll let her introduce herself, is really to help kind of make sure that everybody's getting a chance to participate, that we're coming up with like good activities for us to kind of be talking together, that everybody feels comfortable. She's not a planner, so she kind of can check us on if we're kind of going off the deep end in plannerese. And she'll just help us as we go through the process. So Grace, did you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, so hi everybody. I'm really glad to be here and excited to work with you all. I'm Grace Herbison, and yeah, Liz kind of said the bulk of what I'll be doing. Yeah, I'll be helping kind of keep us using language that everyone can understand. Hopefully I won't talk to you like a 3-year-old, because that's who I spend the majority of my time talking to right now is my daughter. My background, I have about 10 years experience in stakeholder engagement and facilitation. Most of that's been kind of in disability issues. And what I've really brought with me from that background is the idea kind of promoted in the community of nothing about us without us, kind of meaning that no policy should be made without the direct input of the people who are impacted by that policy. And I've really seen the power of that put to work through my work with disability issues. So yeah, I just hope to be a neutral presence that can kind of help guide us through thoughtful discussion and decision making.
Grace, and another point to make. So if you're ever having trouble with attendance or understanding issues or things like that, Grace is another good contact for you to reach out to, and she'll reach out to folks as well. Just again, making sure that we're bringing everybody along and that you're seeing, the productiveness of your participation, because we really appreciate all of you being a part of this process. That's a long one. So again, she'll be helping us tonight for the visioning exercise piece that we'll get to in just a bit. So with that, I wanted to go back to the presentation here. And did anyone have any questions just on that part, on Grace's role? Or I get ahead of myself? Okay, well, you seeing the presentation again?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we are.
Just our quick reminders that we've done on a number of the meetings now. Just remember to turn on your video if possible, and keep your mute on when you're not speaking. Feel free to send us a chat if you're having some type of technical issue. And then if we have members of the public in attendance, yeah, you're more than welcome to join in. But our conversation will be mainly among the steering committee members. So I wanted to just bring up a slide here, and this is just take us back kind of to the beginning of our process and remind you all of kind of the role of the steering committee. I think up until this point, you all have been helping us quite a bit with engagement. So helping us think about how we're doing engagement, inviting us to events in the community, connecting us with folks, and that will continue to be a big part of your role. And we'll have these regular meetings throughout. But another big piece of that is also helping us synthesize what we're hearing, seeking consensus. So we're going to start to kind of digest the things that we're hearing through our community engagement. So a big piece of your role is to help us think through what does that mean in terms of recommendations, what does that mean in terms of a vision, and to help seek that consensus. Again, doesn't mean that everybody will be in agreement on everything, but that we're trying to work towards kind of that best result for our community. So that's kind of your two big pieces, the engagement and helping us synthesize that feedback and eventually get to that neighborhood plan. Was there any questions? I wanted to touch base on our last meeting. And I know we kind of threw a lot at you in terms of a lot of other projects that were going on from the Department of Transportation and Infrastructure. And some of the thinking behind that is to give you all that background of other things that are going on in these neighborhoods, about some of that citywide guidance. So we mentioned early on that there's our citywide plans, and those both are at the comprehensive plan level, but there are also various departments have those plans. So we're trying to give you kind of pieces of that throughout so that you have that background of those other plans and other projects that were going on. So that was some of what we were sharing with you at the end of the last meeting. But we wanted to just pause and see if there's any question about anything from that past meeting that you all wanted to bring up.
I have a question.
Sure.
So in some of the discussions I've had with the community members, remind me, were PowerPoints sent out? And if people did have questions and a lot of information was presented by Dottie and other agencies, was that sent out in prior, or was that sent out in follow-up, or would they have to go to watch the whole entire video presentation to be reminded? Because I gave you the example, they were talking about maps and bikeways, and there were no maps presented to anybody. So, or were there any documentation that people could follow up on?
So I did send out an email right afterwards that talked about some of the meetings and the projects that were going on, but it is on me. I'd say I didn't give the link to the PDF until last week. So that's something I can try to do more quickly after the last meeting and even ahead of time like I did before this one. So that's a good suggestion because I know that was a lot of information for people to take in. But on the website, we do have a project archive, so you can see the video or you can just see the slides. So you don't necessarily have to watch the entire video again. We will always have the slides from each presentation. Trupti, did you raise your hand? You're muted.
Sorry, if Amanda's done. We met a lot of consultants, I believe, at the last meeting too. I noticed that their name and information is not on the website yet. So, and we don't know these people. It's, if we had names, we can kind of look them up, kind of understand their backgrounds a little bit more, just to kind of familiarize ourselves with. So if we can get that kind of information up, sooner.
Good suggestion. We did add that section on our website to have the consultant team. So we'll get that up there so that everybody has those names and what their role is on the plan. And we can also send that out to the steering committee directly as well.
Thank you.
Anyone else? And yeah, just so you all know, feel free to reach out to us too. So if there's any questions that you have after a meeting or you didn't catch something, we're always accessible if you'd like to. Don't feel like you have to wait till the next meeting if you didn't catch on to something. So feel free to reach out to us and we'll try to make improvements throughout so that we're keeping everybody up to speed. Okay, were there any other questions on that? Okay, so what I wanted to give you an update now on is kind of where we are in this process and where we're headed before we jump into the visioning piece. So this, you've seen this kind of diagram of our overall process where we start with the understanding the area, which is really having those initial conversations with the community and doing that kind of early. Yep.
You're not sharing your screen.
Oh, I'm sorry. I stopped sharing, right? And then I have to put it back on. Thank you, Cheney. Okay, you seeing that diagram now?
Yes.
Okay, sorry about that. So here's the diagram of the process where we start with the understanding the area and we work through, developing initial recommendations, and that's an iterative process towards the plan adoption. So we're in that understanding the area, kind of getting towards the end of it and really the results of it. So hearing all these ideas from the community gets us to a place where we try to identify issues and opportunities. So what are the major kind of things that people would like to see fixed or concerns that they have? And what are those opportunities? What are things that people really like, or what are those big ideas that they have? And we kind of synthesize all of those together with looking at our data. And we will come up and bring that to the community and bring that to the steering committee as well to see if there's agreement on what those major issues and opportunities are. We'll also have a summary of what did we hear and how do we make improvements on our community engagement and our strategies going forward. So some of what we talked about last time and that feedback that you gave us on the community engagement plan will help us update that and continue to look at how we improve our engagement process. So we will then be moving into this issues and opportunities and vision phase, which I'll touch on. And I just wanted to give some update, and we did just kind of download the survey offline, so I don't have the very latest numbers from today. So I think it went up about another 50 or so folks. So we've had about 400 people take the surveys. And as of last week, about 325 people have either been at the virtual kickoff or at the number of events that we've been at in the community. And we also did a number of stakeholder interviews with folks that had completed the interest form that a lot of you had done to get some of their ideas about issues in the community. And that totals to about over 1,000 comments that we'll be sorting through and bring to you all as in a summary. I won't go through all of these, but these are some of the events that we attended over the last couple of months now, wrapping up with the JPUN tailgate just this past Sunday. And I will say, since our last meeting, we did do a number of back to school nights where we connected with students and with parents. And we did have a great basketball tournament that we did at the Atzlan Rec Center, which got a lot of kids out and their parents as well. So even though we've closed the online survey and we'll be summarizing that feedback, we will continue to do some of the engagement that we talked to you all about last time. And that includes trying to reach some of those underrepresented groups or those that are not necessarily participating in the survey. Continue to do interviews. We've been working with a number of schools, including getting some internships at North High School that we'll be continuing to pursue. And then we're working towards bringing on community navigators. And again, that's the idea of people embedded in the community who can really help us make connections with some of those groups. So that will continue to be ongoing. So as we look forward into this next phase, we'll work towards drafting a vision. So that's looking forward at 2040.
Hey, Liz,
Yep.
can I interrupt? Can I ask one
sure.
question on your
Yep.
previous slide?
Yep.
Sorry, I tried to raise my hand.
Go ahead. No, sorry, I didn't see it.
How many responses to the survey have you had so far?
So I think, again, I just downloaded it today, but I think it's about at 400 or so.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's more than the last time we talked. I
Yes,
think it was at
it definitely,
50.
it went up. We did a number well, we did some pushes online to try to get people, sometimes when you say it's closing, that's when you can get people to really fill them out. And then we did some paper versions of those surveys at some of the engagement events that we did, like at Quig Newton, we did an event and we did a paper version. So we were able to get some additional feedback there.
Thank you. Just that kind of information is great to hear. Thank you.
Sure. Yes, Trupti, did you have your hand up?
Yes, if that's okay.
Yep,
On this
sure.
slide right there, the reaching underrepresented and the stakeholder interviews, can you tell us what's that looking like right now? I mean, I know you had asked a lot of us, like, to identify folks and businesses. Where are you in that? And kind of, what does that look like? What does that look like? I'm not sure.
Yeah, so we're still mapping out some of that. So we're bringing on a partner to help with the navigator piece. So that, again, that's really having those embedded community members who may be able to make that better connection with folks. And we do see starting some of those focus groups also happening. So it might be small businesses. And I had a talk with Leslie about trying to reach some of those in her group, and the business improvement district area. But really, we're looking at the navigators helping us make those connections, and then probably mapping out some focus group ideas to happen as well. So it's something that we know we need to just be doing ongoing throughout the process and making those connections. So we'll be working on that in the next couple of months.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Yeah, so just on this slide here. So the next step is really thinking through that vision, and we'll do that tonight. Confirming issues and opportunities. So as I mentioned, we'll try to summarize and synthesize what we've been hearing about what those issues are in the neighborhood, what the ideas are for the future, and really have come together around, do we agree that those are the things that we want to try to make recommendations about? And this is also the opportunity when we'll start to identify focus topics. So are there things that really are rising to the top of issues for folks, or focus areas? So are there particular locations? I think the 41st and Fox Station area is an example of one. Might be, or particular areas within near Northwest where we want to dive in deeper and make sure that we have discussion. So that might then result in those focus topic meetings or focus area meetings. And then we'll eventually start to work towards preliminary recommendations. So what will we do to kind of address these issues and opportunities? And this is all work that we'll do together with you all, and what we will take to the community. We think towards the end of the year would be another set of workshops and talking with folks about these. So just a quick example, and then I'll make sure we can get to our visioning. Just if you need to think about what is an area plan, this is an example of the East Area Plan that was adopted last year. This is what we're working towards. It has different chapters that are about different topics. They go from land use and built form, mobility, economy and housing, and quality of life. So if you think about the issues that are coming up and recommendations for them, they'll kind of fit into different buckets. And then each neighborhood would have its own chapter as well. I'm not going to read this, but we work towards kind of a vision, right? So what's the future look like? And like each chapter would have that type of vision at the beginning. And then from there, there's a policy and there's strategies to get there. So in this example, it's talking about basically having more recreational amenities. And so this recommendation is about creating new parks or new recreation facilities. And then there's some specific ways to get there that are suggested. So that's sort of, if you think about the long term, what we're working towards in this plan. And then along with that, in each plan, there's usually a map. So it might say where those opportunities exist, where we might be looking to put in a park space or make an improvement. And then there might be some kind of visuals that help people imagine what that recommendation could look like if we had a new park space. So that's just an example there for folks. And I'm happy to kind of send out a link if anybody wants to look through that in more detail. So just so you have that end goal in mind. So I'm just going to walk through with the caveat that I think we're still doing kind of that ongoing engagement we talked about, and we're still kind of taking all the feedback from the online survey and some of the recent engagement. So this is really just a snapshot of what we've been hearing from the community. And this image on the left is from that kickoff meeting, if you remember that word cloud, and then on the right are some bullets of things we've heard through the events we've had. So in terms of likes or strengths of the Near Northwest, I think we heard a lot about people appreciating walkable destinations, so retail or restaurants or amenities that they can easily get to in their community. I think a lot of what we've heard in this with the steering committee and also was echoed in the community was liking the diversity, the cultural history of the area, and that strong sense of community. People love the older homes and the architectural history. That this area is very close to downtown and close to highways, but still has that, again, its own character and strong sense of community. And a lot of comments of people liking the parks that you do have in the area. Dislikes or concerns. Affordability is definitely up there in terms of that this used to be a more affordable area, but isn't today. Concerns about displacement, both of residents and of small businesses that has happened over time or maybe looming. Talk about some of the arterials and the highways really acting as a barrier. So people feeling that they can't safely cross those or kind of dividing the neighborhoods. Concerns about traffic or speeding in neighborhoods. Feeling that new development doesn't necessarily fit in with some of the older homes in the area, or that the new development lacks some of that traditional green space. Though there are walkable destinations, there are some areas that do lack those amenities, and grocery is one that came up many times in the neighborhoods in terms of having that fresh food access or just a full service grocery store that they could get to. Concerns about safety, both in terms of crime, but also that mobility piece about feeling safe that you could walk around the neighborhood or having to cross some of those busy streets. And then some comments about people liking the recreation centers, but that they don't necessarily have kind of all the modern amenities that some other ones in the city do have. In terms of ideas, I'm going to skip to the second one here, which summarizes here. Definitely the goal that this should be an inclusive community, so that again, that we shouldn't be displacing, and we should actually be welcoming a diverse range of people into the area, that we should have more affordable and attainable housing options, those safer connections, more green space, including like along our streets and trees and grass areas. Again, those increased amenities, particularly like neighborhoods like Chaffee Park, that came up quite a bit. Maybe more uses at the parks and rec centers that we do have. So not changing them from parks, but having dog park is one that came up quite a bit from folks. Looking at ways to preserve our older homes and encouraging new development to fit in better. And then more gathering spaces or amenities, like say having ground floor commercial with new developments, so some of the apartments that come in. So that's a quick snapshot, and we will share with you all kind of the more comprehensive feedback as we go through that, but I just wanted to kind of give you guys a taste of what we've been hearing so far. And one big one, we've been looking at the data piece as well, and we just wanted to highlight kind of this one because I think it came up quite a bit with our meetings, was on demographic changes. And if you remember, we shared, I think it was our first meeting, we shared what the current demographics are of the area and how we can think about that as we do engagement. But we did want to share some just some takeaways that we found to be interesting. One thing that happened, this is looking from 2000 to 2019, and the area has grown in the number of households. This is a housing unit or the people living in it by about 3,000. But this household size has actually gone down quite a bit from 2.87 to 2.07. And you'll see that the population has gone down. This graph here showing in some of our neighborhoods. So what's interesting there is that though we've had more households, maybe more units, housing units built, there's less people living in them. So that might be a story of families moving out of the area and being replaced with smaller couples or single people living in the area. So, that speaks to that story that we've heard about displacement, how much change has already happened in this area. And this second graph here that we wanted to share just shows that Hispanic or Latinx population change that has happened as well. And so you can see that this has, also drastically gone down over the last 20 years or so. So it is, just we'll share more as we go through this process, as we look at comments, say, around different topics about what that data piece that matches it. But we felt that this one was a compelling one to share with you all as an example of things we're hearing from the community, and then we're also seeing in the data as we look at it. Okay, so with that, I wanted to hand it over to Grace. So she's going to explain this visioning piece. Yeah.
So we're all going to work together on a visioning workshop. And in this workshop, we're going to want you all to sort of state as vividly as you can what you want to see happening to the near Northwest in the next 20 years. And I think this is a really exciting step for us to take together, because this is sort of where we come together, you guys as representatives of your communities, to sort of start to shape what the future is going to look like for these 4 neighborhoods. So what the process will look like is it'll be 90 minutes with a break after our small group work. We'll start with some individual brainstorming, then we'll share ideas in small groups and kind of sort through those ideas. And then we'll come back together in the large group and we'll work on kind of sorting those ideas based on themes, so we can kind of identify some commonalities we all share, and giving those different themes a name. And then it will kind of end by reflecting and resolving on the ideas that we came up with. And so the idea behind all of this is to kind of get us to, and Liz touched on this, those vision statements and vision elements that will then be used kind of in the long term to build those recommendations and strategies in the plan. And so some things to keep in mind is, like I had said, it kind of builds on those recommendations. We also are going to try to keep it consistent with the comprehensive plans and Blueprint Denver. So as you think of your ideas, if you can kind of have those things in mind. We also want it to be based on community input, because you guys are all sort of representatives for your community. You can do the next slide. So yeah, here's an example from the near Northeast, sort of what those vision elements look like for them, and then that were used later on to develop recommendations and strategies. And then next slide.
I was just going to chime in that the statements at the top here are from the comprehensive plan. So I sent that out ahead of time, but just these are vision elements for overall for Denver that will kind of guide us throughout the city. So the idea that we'll work towards is kind of state specific visions for near Northwest that kind of help describe what this means for our area.
So ground rules, you have seen these before at the other meetings. So I just want to reiterate them real quick. So we're wanting to allow room for all. So I want to give everyone the opportunity to speak first before second. So if you've already spoken, look around and wait and see if anyone else wants to offer input before saying something else. And this is just because we want to give everyone the opportunity to hear one another and to be heard. So when agreeing, we also want to avoid repeating what others have said. And when disagreeing, we want to focus on the idea and not the person. And the idea is that we all have wisdom here and we want to respect that. And then sort of lastly, like a technical detail, we want to keep our video on as much as possible and use gallery view. That's just so we can kind of engage with each other as much as we can, like we would in real life, and kind of pick up on those non-verbal cues. You can next slide. So now most of you should have received this in the email from Liz, the question that we have for visioning. So mainly I want you to kind of put yourself in the near Northeast in Denver in 2040. And when you're doing that and thinking about what the ideal vision of what these neighborhoods will look like, then I want you to kind of think for yourself, but also think for your neighbors, maybe some of those who are represented in the data that Liz shared, but maybe some of them who maybe weren't represented in that data. Kind of do the user testing that Councilwoman Sandoval has touched on in the toolkit. Think about the different people in your neighborhood, maybe someone who doesn't speak English as their first language, maybe maybe someone who is mobility impaired, somebody who is a single parent. Kind of think of those different people that you know are in your neighborhood. So kind of think of yourself in the ideal version of 2040, and some of the things you might want to consider through that is kind of, what does the community look like? Who lives there? What are the housing options, businesses, recreational opportunities, amenities? What does the architecture look like? What are the buildings like? And how do people move around? And what is the environment like? So some of you may have already kind of brainstormed some ideas, but but in case you haven't, we're gonna give you all 5 minutes to brainstorm ideas. You can kind of write them down, try to get at least 6, and then star your top 2 ideas. And then we'll come back together. And after you're done, you can turn off your screen while you brainstorm. So we'll come back at 6:38. And then I'll give directions for the small group work. Does it sound good? I think so. You guys can all take your 5 minutes.
Are any questions on that? Okay, we'll take 5 minutes and just jot down your ideas for these questions.
So I just want to give everyone kind of a 1 minute warning if you want to kind of finish getting your ideas down and star your 2 favorites.
You're muted, Grace.
Sorry, that'll happen. So if everyone can kind of make their way back to the large group, and I'm going to give some instructions for our next step, which is the small group work. And if folks could maybe like turn their cameras on if they're able, just so I can kind of know you're back in the room and present. Sorry, thanks. Great. So for this next step, we're going to break into small groups. And this time we're kind of mix everybody up and start talking across neighborhoods, because I know kind of in the past we've been broken up by neighborhood. And so what we'll do when we get in those small groups is everyone will go around and share their top 2 ideas. We want to give everyone an opportunity to share their top 2 ideas. And then after those ideas are shared, people can come chime in and share any additional ideas they have. And we're going to try to get these ideas down to be kind of concise and powerful, so they'll fit on the cards, the virtual cards we have, but also kind of to distill it down to the most important elements. And so the goal is going to be to get 12 to 15 cards from your group that kind of represent the diversity of ideas in your group and avoid kind of any overlap that you might have. So you'll get those 12 to 15 ideas down. And then once you get those ideas down, we're going to kind of organize those into 3 groups based on the clearest ideas, unique ideas, and remaining ideas. And the main idea is just to sort those into 3 groups to kind of help the logistics as we move forward. And then we'll bring you back to the main group, and you'll have a 5-minute break before we kind of reconvene as the large group to kind of just talking about the themes. Does anyone have any questions before we move you to the small groups? Great. Okay, and then Ella, are you scooting folks around?
Yes, I am. I've got everyone randomly sorted, so you'll get an invite in a sec. I'm going to send us out. Since we'll be there for 15 minutes, I'm going to also set a timer, but we'll want someone to keep track in each room. So yeah, Cheney will be in one group, Liz will be in one, and Edson and I will be in the third. So I will send us all on our way. See you back here in a bit.
Hi, everybody. I'll repeat those instructions so we can follow it, but I'm going to pull up where I'm going to take some notes.
I started a 15-minute timer.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. Okay, is everybody seeing the screen with some little sticky notes on it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes.
Great. Thank you. Okay, so we're trying to get here, and this is open-ended right now, but kind of talk through what some of those vision ideas are. And we'll go around and we'll let everybody kind of share, again, the ideas, kind of your top 2. And I'll jot them down here, and then we're just going to try to group them together. So if it seems like we have some themes going on with some of our ideas, we'll do that, and then we'll go back into the bigger group to do more of that grouping and discussing them. So did anybody want to try and go first here?
I'll go first.
Okay, so I'm going to
Somebody else will say this, and I won't have anything left. Well, I think my one big one is a 15-minute neighborhood, basically. So people, everything that they need is close by. It's, easy to get to. And, all services as well as retail, as well as restaurants, and obviously groceries, but services especially. I think there's lots of bars and restaurants to get to, but I usually have to go a little further if I have to go to a doctor or a pharmacy. So a 15-minute neighborhood where everything's nearby would be my top. And are you looking for 2, right?
2, yep.
And then the second one would be, how we move, and basically trying to, and again, this aligns with the 15-minute, is that we can all bike, roll, walk a lot more to a lot more places rather than have to get into our cars. So, the ability to do that will depend on the infrastructure we put in place, and not the other way around. Thank
So
you.
making sure we give folks options, right? Those options are there.
I would actually say that we have prioritized cars, and I think it's now time to turn that upside down and prioritize people and walking and bikes and other modes of transportation, which really, ties into some of the sustainability pieces as well as the 15-minute neighborhood. So thank you.
Thank you. I'm probably writing these longer than we're supposed to, but I'm want to capture it. Anybody else want to go next? Your top two. Nola, you want to go? Okay.
Sure. I'm Chaffee Park. I was thinking about affordable housing as a priority. And I know that it's not just something that you can say you want to be there and then it becomes. So I guess some ways to get there might be looking at spaces around the edges of the neighborhood. So all along like 48th, for instance, along the highway, the north side of the highway, it's just kind of like dead space. So how do we do a combination of like activating those areas and greening them, but also think about mixed use along that whole 48th corridor that could involve multifamily, as well as Pecos, Federal, and 52nd, kind of like all of the edges, and including, because we have Adams County to our north, or unincorporated Adams County, but that's also where there's a lot of potential opportunity. Like there's a lot of like inactive old large buildings and things, potentially areas. So looking at partnerships with unincorporated Adams County too, because it doesn't seem like things are moving as much there. But then the other side, which is kind of my second idea, I guess, is the second priority is, well, if I can keep it in the first one, because I have another one.
Yeah, that's fine. I just wanted to capture both, like yeah.
Is figuring out mechanisms for public land to be acquired. So this is kind of connected to my next one, which is that we don't have a library, we don't have a rec center in Chaffee Park. There's really very little public facilities in this area. So thinking about like, how do we acquire the land, and then how are standards for use of public land really equitable, and that we aren't just acquiring to sell off at market rate, or but that there's very clear, and I would say even towards reparative or justice oriented work to undo or repair what the historic harms have been. So thinking about our loss of Latinos in this neighborhood, like how do we bring folks back, right? How do we get that population back? How do we build a place that people both want to be, that fits people's needs? So just thinking about how to public land as a strategy for both like the things that the neighborhood needs that we're missing, but also to be reparative and kind of restore the historic harms.
You're getting a little bit into the like strategy piece, like how do we get there? But it sounds like if I'm hearing your vision right, it's an inclusive place with these affordable housing options and also these amenities in place, like these public amenities. That's kind of your like end goal, like a place that we can bring people back, that is inclusive, that is affordable and has public facilities. Does that sound? I know I'm simplifying, but I'm trying to distill it down to sort of that, what's the end goal?
Yeah. And just also just activate, like we have a lot of dead
activating spaces. Yeah, okay. Yeah.
So activating, but with all those other goals in mind.
Thanks.
And some cultural relevance too.
Yeah.
Okay.
My 13-year-old is saying ice cream shop to me. So.
Liz, can I offer just a suggestion as we're
Yep, I'm writing too
typing
long.
this out? Oh, no,
Yeah.
the link a little bit, but if you can separate the ideas so that there's not like more than one
Yeah.
idea on the card, it'll help us later when we kind of are identifying our commonalities. Sorry, thanks.
Okay. Sounds good. Okay, does somebody?
Yeah, this is Nita, and I also am a Regis trustee as well as a resident of Jaffe Park. And when I look at 2040, this is what I'm looking at. At 2040, I'm of course not going to be here, which is interesting. But my grandchild is 6 years old. So what will he look at? And my daughter, my grandson, and my son will be aging in place, I hope, in Jaffe Park. And I think we have a unique opportunity with given Federal Boulevard. I mean, I would love to see that boulevard be much more pedestrian and bicycle friendly. I'd love to see our tree canopy expanded throughout near Northwest Denver, a commitment to ensure that that's expanded to create an environmentally sound place for youngsters to grow up in and families to enjoy. I agree with several of the elements that were presented previously. I think it's also very important that we also not only have the spaces for people to enjoy in terms of green space, open space, family space, but how do we ensure that businesses also embrace this? How do we ensure that Regis University becomes part of the community, an extension of the community, rather than separate? How do we ensure that businesses along Federal embrace community and do so in a way that when they have businesses along Federal, that it's supportive of the community and supported by the community? We don't have a grocery store. We don't have the elements that create community that works, that unifies community. I think our parks do that, and I think it's very important that we protect that green space that we have for our children, not for just the dogs in the community, but for our children in the community. So I have a real strong bias about that. How do we do that at Zunai Park, at Rocky Mountain, at Berkeley and Scheitler and Extended? I think there's a possibility along Federal to create a green space that we've not really done well with, that would encourage the pedestrian kind of walking. And how do we engage Regis? Because they've got 52 acres of land to people. And how do we ensure that those 52 acres not only serve the students, but the community at large? I think that's an important responsibility. So I wanted to speak to that. I've been here 40 years and I have my daughter who's a teacher at Edison, and I hope will be here for her time as well. But I have a 6-year-old grandson that I'm thinking in terms of his future. What will it look like for him here?
Yeah, we're right under 4 minutes now.
Yeah.
Okay.
I appreciate all of that. How about we try, and Grace, sorry, I've not kept these to 3 to 7 words, but we can try to do some of the grouping together. And Grace, if I'm right, the idea is just kind of like so that we can talk about them in the larger
Group. So,
sure.
yeah, and starting with the clearest ideas is helpful just to get us on an easy start to things. I might go check in with the last group.
Yeah.
And yeah, we're supposed to regroup here in a couple minutes. So yeah, I'll let you guys do your work.
Liz, did everybody go that needed to go in this group?
So yeah, I think it's
Just the three of us.
The three of you. 'Cause I don't know.
Oh, wait, there's also,
Renee
here.
Oh,
here.
sorry, I didn't see you there. Okay, let's let you go.
Yes,
I
thank you.
apologize.
no
And
problem.
then is
Fell off
Amanda,
my gallery view.
is Amanda part of the consultant team?
Sure. Oh, and Renee, I see you there.
Renee.
Okay, let's go.
Yeah,
Sorry.
Renee and,
Sharing
yeah.
everybody. So let's go to Esteban and then Renee. Amanda is part of our consultant team.
Most of the time, I'm not gonna finish the link yet.
Esteban, did you want to go?
There's a frog,
Oh, nice.
and I finished.
Hey,
Yeah.
Anita, can you?
Let's
Mute.
mute.
Oh,
Okay.
Yeah, I think most of my ideas have already been articulated, but kind of going off of what others have mentioned in terms of small businesses, I think to go along with that, jobs and job opportunities. To earlier was mentioned, how do we bring back displaced communities, but also maintaining communities. I think providing jobs and job opportunities for those in the neighborhood is, I think, should be a top priority. Earlier was mentioned the idea of public land and offering or providing rec centers and libraries. Along with that, I think just also kind of museum spaces or places to kind of commemorate or recognize the history of this landscape, long-term history, but also, more recent histories. And so recognizing this as a changing landscape.
That's great. Thank you. Renee, did you want to jump in?
Sure. I would say what I'd want to see would be a bunch of new housing types, forms, and sizes. So just like, let's break from the mold of existing housing or huge duplex options and have just a bunch of different forms that you see in other cities, triple deckers, co-housing, a bunch of different forms. Since in 2040, I would say 1/4 to 1/3 of the streets are actually just a lot more, they don't have cars or very limited car access. There's just a lot more dedicated streets, and the cars are energy efficient, which means maybe we have less pollution days and a darker sky so that our kids within our neighborhood could really see the stars at night. So kind of combining the streets with just more environmentally sound.
I like that. See the stars at night as a goal.
All right, we're up at time.
Okay. I didn't do the great grouping, but I think we'll do that as a group. Are there any on here that everybody would say is kind of their top? If we were to say, that's kind of the idea of this like clearest ideas, kind of like ones that we think are the most important together as a group. If you can even see them, but.
Affordable housing and housing diversity are two of my favorite.
These two, I'm just moving them over here so we can keep track of where they are. Anybody else's favorites or something you heard someone else say that you would say is a top one for you?
It looks like the cars and the people situation has, come up in a couple places.
Yep,
Pedestrian friendly streets for,
friendly.
Yep. So those kind of, or at least three of them are in this.
15-minute.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so this pedestrian, the federal one is all kind of the same.
And can I just add,
Yep.
like Nola mentioned the, issue of like land trust and different ownership models of land. And I just don't see that unless we're just looking at public facilities, which is a little different. If a public facility could be a rec center, but she's talking about land ownership and having, different models. If everything is just going to go to a developer market rate and it goes to the highest bidder and the people who can afford it, we're never going to get to having, a place where people who've been displaced can actually come back. So I just didn't see that in there. And I think it is actually, different models of land ownership, I guess.
Yeah, that's a good point. Thank you. Thank you.
So a way that people are better able to participate in own, like having a piece of ownership in their community.
Yeah, I like that one a lot, and I think it was partially in the different housing types, right?
Yeah,
Where
yeah,
three people-
exactly.
Yeah, where 3 people can own a structure.
I think it's also about just, why can't the city, government buy some land, develop it for purposes of being able to make it affordable, right? If we think we're going to do that through market, that's where we keep failing is.
Well, I think it's the other issue of, we have teachers who want to teach in our district but can't live in our district.
Yep.
Nurses who
Workforce
want to serve in our hospitals but can't live here. So I think we need to pay attention to that.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to take it away.
And I'm gonna group together kind of these amenity ones a little bit, maybe.
Is what Nita said, like, can we take the 15-minute neighborhood and add that for everyone, like for
everyone, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
That inclusive piece.
Yeah.
Had some groupings around like environmental piece, I would say.
Yeah. And does the parks go into the amenity section, the existing and new community
I would
spaces?
say similar idea.
So I do have something in
the
the
business piece and that's sort of amenities too, but.
So one of the things I was thinking about is when we think about community gathering spaces, and I think one of the examples you had listed in the presentation was having a high rise with the first, floor being activated. But I think there's a difference between having the first floor being activated by a business where the only way you can use that space is if you go in there and buy something.
Yeah.
But I think truly community spaces are gathering spaces where they're open and free for people and communities to use, whether it's the rec center, so I don't know that, at least in that example, when we think about gathering spaces, it's beyond just a coffee shop where if I don't buy a cup of coffee, I'm going to get kicked out. That's not a gathering space.
So that truly public space.
Yes.
Yeah, that with the comment that I shared, I heard more of some people feeling like there was just an apartment building. There wasn't anything else.
Right,
for
no,
the
I get
community.
that. That's like the activation, of the area, right? But I think the public space that I am envisioning is a place for community to gather, a place for people to be able to hold public, community meetings and things, where people can gather. And I just don't think we can do that today without asking a business, can we use your space? We'll buy some stuff from you.
Yeah. Good point. Okay, well, we might be heading back. Did anybody else want to add anything here? No, it's a little bit hard for you to see what I'm doing, but we're gonna try to group these together with what everyone else is commenting on as a larger group.
I like Nola's idea about rec center. Chaffee Park is so huge. Zuni Park is so huge. It's underutilized. So that's already city space. It's already owned by the city. We wouldn't have to acquire anymore. I think that we need to also look at the inventory of what does the city and county of Denver own, and are we using it at its maximum potential? I don't know.
Absolutely.
I don't know if
agree.
anyone ever does that type of inventory, but it seems like we have the ability to look at the what does the city and county of Denver own in these 4 neighborhoods and do an audit, I guess is a better way to say it, on maximum potential.
And I think to that point on our spaces being used adequately, I mean, for DHA's parcels, is that enough density? Given that affordable housing is needed, I think those kind of expectations on parks and like DHA property is appropriate.
Absolutely.
A great
And then
comment.
being able to partner with DHA, like in other areas, to have other type of community serving amenities
Yeah.
within those build outs. Absolutely, Renee.
Yeah, that would help other folks kind of get and meet and be around, you know, the diverse. We may have diversity, but it's all kind of segregated maybe, you know, and have like removing some of those by having spaces, you know, embedded for folks to share.
Like a library
Yeah.
on this side of Federal, or even on past Zunai, or it's not easy for people in the Sunnyside neighborhood to always, and Chaffee Park, to get to our library system.
That's so true, Councilwoman. That would be incredible.
Okay, welcome everyone back to the main group, but we're gonna just take a 5-minute break. Thank you guys for all your participation. Sorry if it felt a little rushed there. And so we'll meet back here again at 7:10. That sounds good.
Is something that's supposed to happen right now?
We're taking a quick break while we try to organize some of
Oh,
the
got it.
post-its
All
so
right,
that
you guys
we'll
are
come back
organizing.
together.
We're taking a
Yeah,
break.
You're good.
Thank you.
Liz, did you see my note about meeting briefly tomorrow or Thursday, Friday, whatever?
Yes, I'm gonna send the 10:30 on time on Friday. Does that work
Sure,
for you? Okay, I'll do that. I'll try to do that right
I'll get it in my calendar.
now. I'll send an appointment right now.
Okay. Are we gonna Zoom that or you gonna call us?
I'll send a Zoom. That seems,
Okay.
do you think everybody has Zoom?
Well, I know Lisa and I do. I don't know.
Okay,
what
I'll send
Susan
that.
does. I'll bet she does. We're used to it by now.
Yep, none of us really had a choice, I know.
I had to finish my last semester at the university, pivoting to Zoom in like 5 days, you know.
For teaching,
Yeah. Yeah.
impressed with everybody being able to do that change.
The one that was hard was my weekend class, which was 6-hour classes. And we tried to get out on field trips. So we just pivoted to virtual field trips.
So you're not teaching anymore?
I retired. It's lovely. But I wrote a book that I got to my editor in June. So that was sort of like working.
Definitely working.
Hello, everyone. So we're at 7:11 actually. So if you could get everyone to come back in, if you're back in the room, if you could turn your cameras on so we can just kind of know you're here. So I'm just gonna size. And then Liz, you were gonna be able to, as we kind of work through the ideas, kind of drop and bring some more ideas from the next two categories from the slides in.
Yep. Do you want me to put them on this same slide?
Yeah, so you can kind of put them towards the bottom or to the side. Sorry, I kind of was trying to work fast and it's not quite as neat as I wanted it to be.
No
It's kind of
problem.
more to the side so we know they haven't been covered yet, just kind of in their own little spot as much as possible. Okay.
Is it possible to zoom in a little bit? Can everybody see that? Yeah. It's showing it in portrait mode for some reason.
Yeah, I'm seeing the same. It is a little hard to see. That's better.
This is better.
Yeah, now it's full screen. That's great.
Okay. Sorry, did it get messed up again? Sorry. Is it visible to everyone now? Is it okay? Anybody having trouble seeing it? And I'll read them all aloud.
It went back to the way it was.
Yeah.
Went back to the way it was. I'm sorry about that. Now is that better?
No, it's the same. That's better.
It might,
Yeah.
sorry, it might take there's a little lag, I think.
Yep, that's better.
Okay, so now our sort of in this next step, we're going to work on kind of grouping like ideas, sort of based on that vision question. So sort of thinking about answering the question of like, what is the vision of the near Northwest in 2040? We want to kind of group ideas that answer that question similarly. And then that's sort of for us to all find ideas of commonality. And, you know, we don't have to rush to the finish line. kind of work through this. Someone can offer an idea, but someone else can offer a different idea. So I'll go through, and get on here. And so we're going to sort the ideas under these different kind of tags on the top of the screen, the exclamation point and the asterisk. We're going to avoid naming them until we get all the ideas we want in the different categories. And so I'll start with reading the ones on the screen. This is from your first to third groups, and then we'll kind of start grouping those together. So I'll read what we have on the scene. So right now we want to focus on we're going to only answer questions about clarity. We don't really want to debate the validity of the ideas at this point. That might be something we pursue in a future meeting. But here we're just, if I read an idea and it is unclear to you, please kind of raise your hand or unmute yourself to let us know. And then I'd ask for someone from that group or the person who offered that idea to provide clarification. Please don't try to interpret it yourself, because we want to hear what our neighbors had to say. So if there's something you don't understand, please do that. Liz, if you could hold off on putting ones on there until after we kind of work through more of these, and then we'll add more as we kind of we're running low on ideas. Does that work? Sorry.
Yep. Sorry.
Okay, I'll start with the ideas we have up here. So, and if anything's unclear, please unmute yourself and ask. So variety of housing sizes intermixed, more families with diverse representation, housing available for all socioeconomic and lifetime levels, mixed income housing options, maintain architectural history, accessible, convenient, and affordable transit options, inclusive, accessible land use patterns, ways to get more diverse people in hood, affordable housing, and inclusive place to repair historic harms, cleaner air, more trees, community centers, parks, gathering places, sustainability, economic, social, and environmental, transportation to support density, bunch of new housing types, forms, and sizes, more sustainable open places, shared ownership, different models. Did anybody have questions on or need something clarified before I'm going to start grouping ideas? No. Okay. Okay.
Looks like
So-
Lexi
Yeah.
had a question.
Okay.
I just am curious about the shared ownership, different models. Is that like home ownership?
Does the person or team that kind of offered that want to share, kind of provide some clarification around that?
Or Troop, do you want to jump in on that? From our group.
Troopy, I think you're on mute.
Sorry about that. I was actually playing off of something another individual in our group was talking about as well, but we're talking about things like community land trusts and different mechanisms of land ownership, right? So it's not just a person buys a plot of land, with a house or a particular zoning on it, but about how there could be different models for who owns the land and who gets to live there. And the community land trust is one of those.
Cool, thanks.
Any other questions for clarification? Oh, sorry, my camera's on. No. Okay, so does somebody want to go and offer a suggestion for a pair that might go together?
There's a number that are housing related.
Yeah, so maybe we'll start with just, I'd like us to kind of start with just one pair. So is there a pair, like two of the cards you see that maybe go together?
Inclusive, accessible land use patterns, housing available for all socioeconomic and lifetime levels.
Yeah.
Okay. Inclusive, accessible land use patterns. And Troop D, what was the second one you mentioned?
Housing available for all socioeconomic and lifetime levels.
Housing available.
Right above that.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
Mixed income housing options kind of goes with that too.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So before we kind of add stuff to a category, I'd like to ask for another pair that represents a different idea, but then nonetheless that sort of go together. And then
Accessible, convenient, affordable transit options,
okay,
and then transportation to support density, I think goes with that.
transportation to support density. Okay. Do you want to touch on why you feel those two items go together?
Well, for me, it suggests we might be rethinking what transit in the neighborhood might be about.
Do other folks, if you could give me nods or kind of head shakes or even thumbs up or down if you feel like, does that make sense to put those together?
Yes.
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 Does anyone give me a no? Okay. All right. And so now I want to ask for another pair, sort of same idea. Maybe if we could get somebody else who hasn't spoken to identify another pair that they feel goes together.
This is Renee.
Who was that? Sorry, I think two people speaking.
Want to go first, maybe?
I'm not sure who else was speaking. I was going to say a bunch of housing types goes with shared ownership in different models.
A bunch of housing types. Okay. Okay. And then again, if we could have another pair that maybe represents a different idea.
How about mixed? Oops, sorry.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Speaking. Or maybe Ashton, if you wouldn't mind speaking, just to give somebody else a different an opportunity.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Someone else can have an opportunity. That's fine.
No, I was saying you speak because I don't
Oh,
think
okay. I don't
yet.
have a double. I have a triple. Cleaner air, more trees, more sustainable open space, and community centers, including parks and gathering spaces.
Okay. See, cleaner air, more trees, and more sustainable open space. And then and so as we're getting here up to kind of our fourth category, we can kind of start adding more.
So
What was your third one? What was
community centers with parks and gathering space? Just feels like it would fall in line with those other two.
Okay. What do other folks, do I have agreement on that, or does anyone feel these ideas maybe belong in a different area? So I'm just going to move these so they don't look like they're in the category. If you have a disagreement, you can kind of unmute and speak up.
I'll just say that was in our group, and although it says parks and gathering spaces, I think it really meant, all types of community centers, so not just open space, if that makes sense. So maybe it could be in a separate category.
So maybe it was more about community than about the green space.
Right, I think so, yeah. Okay.
All right, so before we maybe get a few more ideas up here, I'm going to move them around just to kind of clean it up a little bit. Does anybody want to offer maybe a last pair before we maybe start adding a few more ideas to things?
Yeah, I will. Mixed income housing options and variety of housing sizes intermixed.
Mixed housing options. All right. Does everyone feel like those two make sense to go together?
Yes.
Does anyone have doubts, concerns? Okay. All right, so we kind of have these few remaining ideas on the bottom. Does anyone feel like these should be added to one of the existing categories, or does anyone have an idea about starting a new category?
Well, the one you have selected and then the more families with diverse representation look like they would go together.
Okay. Great.
In some
Is there
ways, the main,
Is there agreement on that, or is there anyone who kind of feels like that needs further explanation, or? Okay. Does someone want to offer an idea for additional category with the remaining ideas, or to add, to move one of the ideas into an existing category?
the architectural history and the repair historic harms might go together.
And repair historic harms. Which symbol is that under? Sorry, that is,
It's right next to the one you're on.
oh, okay, so offering.
I will say that that maintain architectural history came from our group, and that's really more about like historic districts and building forms and less about, I don't know, I'm not sure, but more like, I guess it ties with the historic stuff, but it's really more about building form and trying to keep some of our history in our neighborhoods.
Oh.
I don't know what the other one was about because that was a different group, so I don't know if that's similar, but just to give you context for the history, it's more about the buildings that we were talking about.
So I think the affordable housing and repair historic harms, I think it came from our group. I think that was more about, the displacement issue and folks having been removed, and how do we bring them back, and how do we build the places that they belong rather than, excluding them. So I think that's what that, at least the repair historic harms piece of it was speaking to. And I think that was Nola's, if she's still on.
Tripti or Nola, is there a category you feel like that fits under, kind of with that additional
Maybe
context?
more in that ways to get more diverse people in the hood than in that category.
I have agreement on that. I'm seeing some nods. I know, Shani, you had said that the community centers, gathering places. Does anyone, or why don't we, Liz, I'll pull over some of your, these are on the left here, and Liz, is this some additional ideas to pull in? Okay. Not sure if I'm missing
They're
it.
looking like this, we've already used.
Duplicate, yeah.
Oh, so these are the same ones, maybe?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
So maybe we got mixed income housing already.
I think we missed one from group 3 that was tied to design control. I don't remember exactly how it was worded, but that could kind of tie with the maintain architectural history, more about like building form. I don't know where that one ended up, or if.
Yeah, so there's more ideas. Liz, if you could grab some of the ideas from slide 5 of the Google Docs and just kind of drag those in, just so we can kind of.
Sorry about that. Grabbing them from the wrong
sorry. I'm just trying to delete the duplicates. I'm not deleting anyone's ideas. They're still up here. There were some duplicates up there. So I think cleaner air, more trees is already sorted.
And so is the more
Open space.
open space. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. There we go.
Okay. All right. So I think I successfully removed the duplicates, hopefully. So here are a few more ideas. I'll read them out loud and then see if there's need for clarification. And we can just kind of stick with these 6 additional ones for now. So safer walkways, bikeways, connect community, more enticing public transit experience, small local circulator buses, buildings that blend in rather than compete, entice developers to keep existing structures or missing middle, monorail to downtown.
So it looks like we have a few that are transportation related, right? The public transit experience, monorail, small local circulator buses, all are transportation related, if that's the bigger, broader theme there.
Mm.
I'm okay with dumping the monorail one. That was my idea.
I'm going to just scoot these to the side to make room in our columns. So is there a category that I noticed that there was a theme of transportation? Is there one of the categories we feel like they go in and even if they're transportation and related, if they seem to be expressing different ideas about transportation, it might be a good, last possibility could be that they're in different categories.
Well, I think safer walkways and bikeways might be its own, because I don't see a lot of our stuff there, but I know there was a lot of conversation about pedestrian friendly.
Yeah, I
prioritizing-
would agree.
Yeah, prioritizing people over cars. So I think that safer walkways and bikeways and connect community might be its own, whereas the small local circulator buses may be, that might, I don't know, I'm not sure about that one. That may be a little different than the two transportation ones that are there, but possibly.
I would agree. I would agree.
I agree too.
So safer bikeways and walkways, does anyone disagree with, so well, that may be its own separate category, which may be more cards to support that in a minute. And then we have these, we don't have to continue on the transportation if somebody else has an idea that seems to fit in somewhere else. And I can always kind of make another box.
I think we'd need to for the maintain architectural history and building that blend in rather than compete.
Yeah, I was just going to suggest that as well.
And the entice developers to keep existing structures, possibly fall into that development piece of it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so can you repeat that again, Trupti, which ones you believe go together? Sorry, I was making.
Yeah, no worries. I know. Maintain architectural history.
Maintain architectural history.
Yep. Buildings that blend in rather than compete.
There we go.
And I'm going to go back and say that entice developers to keep existing structures or missing middle may not be in that one. It may be in more the housing situation rather than this the built form preservation that one seems like it's talking about.
Yeah, and I don't know, Ella, where I my two are missing from group 3, and I have one, or we talked about one that is trying to get developers in, like, basically help with essential businesses, and I don't know where that one went.
We're still kind of moving ideas in so that we don't overwhelm you with all of the ideas at once.
Sure.
So
okay,
that's,
well, I think that one would go very well with the developer one.
So if maybe we could have a few more ideas, since I think if there's more on 5 or if we need to move to 6, Liz, if you were able to do that. So you were, so if maybe somebody who hasn't spoken has an idea about kind of moving some of these, and I'll read kind of these new ones that are coming in. So 1/4 to 1/3 of streets don't have cars or have limited car access. 15-minute neighborhood for everyone, everything you need close by and easy to get to. Prioritize people rather than cars, bike, roll, walk instead of having to use a car. Support for community building events. And essential community services through development. Work here, live here, work here, play here. I think those are the new ones. Does there anyone need clarification on any of those new ones that were dropped in? Sorry, we've got a few more over here too. Before I read these new 4, does anyone need clarification on the ones that were already dropped in? No. Okay, so I'll just read these new 4. Existing new parks, existing/new parks as public community gathering space. Federal is pedestrian and bike friendly. Mixed use and activated, including housing on less used edges. 48th and 48th Pecos 52nd, and amenities with cultural relevance.
Maybe just 2 more from that slide, that last slide 5.
And then
I think maybe the second column could be combined with the 6. The mixed income and the inclusive, if we needed to free up a column.
Okay, you said, so the suggestion was the second column, the exclamation point. And what was the other column?
And the percentage.
And the percentage, the idea of combining them. And
yeah, I agree.
Does anybody kind of disagree? So that's inclusive, accessible land use patterns, housing for all, socioeconomic lifetimes levels, and mixed income housing options, and variety of housing sizes intermixed. Does anyone kind of have thoughts that those don't belong together?
I'm not sure that inclusive accessible land use patterns necessarily just relates to buildings. Could also relate to parks and, you know, sustainable environmental stuff.
True.
So should we leave it where it's at right now and then maybe revisit it as we sort some other ideas? Okay. So I'm not sure if I read everything that was new up here. I think museums, places that celebrate our history, recent and long-term is new. And more enticing public transit experience, I believe, is new. And does anyone see anything up here that's unclear to them? Does anyone have thoughts on where to move these items?
Is anybody else going? I'm ready to get these tiles in place.
Let's do it.
All right.
And if anyone else, like if someone's more comfortable speaking up, if you guys can just indicate if you agree or if you disagree, please speak up.
All right. So the prioritized people rather than cars, 1/3 to 1/3 of streets don't have cars or have limited access. I think that goes along with the safer walkway, bikeway, connected communities.
So the asterisk down here.
Yeah, I
And
think
then the first one was, I'm sorry, the
prioritize people rather than cars, bike, roll, walk instead of having to use a car.
okay, there we go. Thank you. I might have to, okay, sweet. Did someone move that for me so nicely? Okay, great. So we've got quite a few to kind of work through here.
I wonder if in the second column, if that housing available for all goes under the percentage, and that land use, inclusive land use patterns starts to go with like 15-minute neighborhood and
So housing available for all socioeconomic, move it under the percentage sign. Does that make folks? I'm seeing a lot of nods there. And leave kind of inclusive, accessible land use patterns. And that kind of fits with a comment made earlier about maybe those two. The full columns didn't make sense combining, but maybe that singular item.
And I think she said the 15-minute neighborhoods for everyone. She thought it would be inclusive, accessible. If that goes there, I think the live here, work here, play here kind of may go there. That's kind of similar, which is everything near you.
So is that, are you just, sorry, under the percentage sign there? If we can use the symbols, that helps me. Sorry, a little faster.
Under the exclamation point.
Under the exclamation.
Yes.
Sorry. 15-minute, and then there was another card, I think.
Live here, work here, play here.
Live here, work here, play here.
Goes
Does
under
that,
exclamation.
how do people feel about that? Seeing some head nods. Good.
Community centers too, or does that go someplace else?
I feel like the community centers might be its own thing.
Well, you've got museums and places that celebrate and community building events. And if you put them together as a sort of umbrella, how do we build pride in the neighborhoods? Saying,
actually,
you know, our history, our identities. See what I mean?
Yeah. So if somebody can explain the support for community building events. So this is like the city helps us do things that, you know, throw a party for the neighborhood.
Yeah, so that was mine actually. It was about like we used to have the white tablecloth dinner in Highland, and so stuff like that, where it's just volunteer type events, like, you know, just that end up getting lost because people don't want to be in charge anymore.
That's true.
So am I hearing a suggestion for maybe a new category that I made a new box?
Yes.
And so, and Liz, I wanted to comment, I think on time, I don't think it's likely we're gonna get to naming them, as that might be something that we revisit in the next meeting, but hopefully we can get through sorting these kind of where we're comfortable that they belong together.
So
And then the idea is that at the end we'll name them, and that will kind of help us kind of really see where we're all on the same page about these ideas. And so I added the plus sign because I heard that, you know, some of the ideas maybe didn't quite fit with some of the existing categories.
So it sounds like the support for community building events is very different than the rest. The rest of them are much more infrastructure and development, where that one is more about helping communities to do things that otherwise won't get done because the volunteers don't want to step up or there isn't capacity.
Yeah.
It sounds a little different than the rest.
Yeah.
So we can kind of leave that one to the side if it for now, if it doesn't quite feel like it fits, and then touch on kind of the maybe the other ideas that maybe do have a home more at the bottom of the page.
Okay.
I would
For Liz.
I would vote for putting it in that new column that you've got, because I think there are some other ones.
Move it over there for
Yeah.
now to
Yeah,
kind
that's
of
what I would
keep
do.
things clear. There we go.
Amenities with cultural relevance and museums and places that celebrate history could go under support for community building too.
Exactly.
Support. So this goes in this new category.
Mhm.
The other one, what was the other one? I'm sorry.
Museums.
Museums,
Far
places that
left.
celebrate.
Far left. And even the existing new parks, public community gathering spaces kind of idea of like cultural centers.
Do I see agreement
Yep.
on that?
I don't know. I don't know what that one was about, but it feels like it kind of ties to that community.
So I mean, so does that community centers, parks and
Yeah.
gathering space. Those two also can go there for now.
And maybe even the more public facilities, amenities too. Those all kind of tie together.
Mhm.
So community parks, the more
That
public
big one, yeah.
facilities.
Mhm.
Cool. All right. So these are the ones we have left. More enticing public transit experience, small local circulator buses, monorail to downtown, sustainability, economic, social, environmental, essential community through services through development.
Can somebody explain that, the essential community services through development?
Yeah, I think that one, that was mine. It ties kind of to the entice developers to keep existing structures. So like kind of the idea that we use now for affordable housing, where we can entice development in different ways to include affordable housing. Also looking at community services that are missing in different parts, like, hey, we're missing a grocery store in this area, or also helping nonprofits maintain space where they might otherwise be kicked out. So maybe like enticing development. That's the community services idea of like, you know, maybe incorporating a grocery store and a nonprofit space in a new development.
So would that essential community service through development go into where we have the 15-minute neighborhoods? We're saying that we want, I mean, that's how maybe we get it done, right? So enticing a developer to put in a grocery store or bodega, but having a bodega lets us get to the live here, work here, play here, walk, 15-minute neighborhood so you can get to what you need.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Like that.
I agree.
Okay.
So,
And this does see kind of more of the, not so much the big picture vision as it is kind of the idea.
No, I actually think it's the essential community services through development that go under exclamation, not entice development.
Oh, I'm sorry. There we go.
Well, that could also, I don't know. Maybe that structure one goes with the
I think goes with the
the
housing.
architectural history and buildings that blend. I don't know. I wasn't part of that one, but feels like maybe.
It kind of fits in two places. Sorry.
well,
go
I
ahead.
think there was,
So let me sort through was there a suggestion to move something somewhere specific?
I feel like there's an idea that was somewhat captured in our group, but isn't here, which was when we were talking about just responsible development and land use. It was like about, Councilwoman said, looking at parks and making sure there's uses that are community responsive, looking at like DHA and making sure there's enough density there. And so I feel like the mixed use one and the entice developers, to some extent, those are, community responsive developments.
Yeah.
Because they're definitely, I agree, they're a part of a 15-minute neighborhood, but in terms of a policy, it seems like we were asking for some sort of filter or community responsiveness so that we can create those type of.
So was there a category, sorry, I'm trying to keep it focused on moving things around, or if we need to create an additional category?
I don't see
so
that.
there were cards that haven't been up yet, is kind of what that haven't been up yet. So maybe we can get a few more up here.
So Grace,
I'll
I
try to move
would
these to the side so you can kind of flop them and they won't get too confused.
take the bus and the transit and put it under the.
Yeah, I was gonna say all these transportation related ones, even the monorail, get that all go under the @ symbol.
All under the @ symbol. Does that make sense for everyone?
Except for the monorail.
Yes.
Except for the monorail. So this more enticing transit experience.
Yep.
And even federal pedestrian and bike friendly.
Yeah.
You can delete the monorail. That was my idea, so you can delete it.
So moving this federal as pedestrian friendly and bike friendly under the @ sign.
Yes.
The asterisk.
The asterisk.
Asterisk, yeah, asterisk.
You're right.
Does everyone kind of agree with that? So did I move those in the correct spots? And then now we're left with these.
So that mixed use one, including housing on less used edges, does that fall under exclamation or does that fall under percentage?
Or $sign.
$signs, cleaner air, more trees? For the mixed use and activated, including housing?
Well, because especially if it's former industrial space or something that is an eyesore, then I think it can.
Like, I think it was underutilization of land that could be used for housing, and when obviously when we build housing, we need to always be thinking about affordable and inclusive. But I think it was more about housing than clean air.
So the %sign.
I think.
Move the suggestion to move this under the % sign.
Yeah, not the exclamation, the %.
Oh, sorry, %. There we go.
I have to use numbers next time.
A couple more things have come in. So keep businesses diverse, complete neighborhoods. Tree canopy expanded.
Well, that's an easy one. The business one may be new. I
So
don't
tree
know.
canopy, where were you wanting to put that one?
$sign.
Yep.
And then we have jobs and job opportunities, environmentally sound, less pollution.
Less pollution, $sign.
$sign.
Yep.
I'm just kind of rushing through it a little bit because of time.
Yeah, I think so.
And then
I think the complete neighborhoods is in the same place. It's the exclamation.
Okay.
The 15-minute neighborhoods. We can't see all of them. It looks like compatible design looks like it should be with maintain architectural history, buildings that blend.
Sure.
Yeah.
So, sorry, can you repeat that for me?
Compatible design.
Compatible design. Okay, the one that's highlighted here.
All
And then
the way to the left,
yeah,
closing.
closing here. Sustainability. So we have a few more ideas down here. Liz, were there even more? Or was
I
this-
think I grabbed all of them now. So I think you
Now we just have a few more to work through.
I think we can get
sustainability, economic, social, and environmental.
I'm not sure what
Minor-
that means. Can
Does
somebody
someone
explain
wanna-
what that's relating to specifically?
It was sort of a big bucket. We were putting many ideas in.
So
But
maybe
the-
because these are sort of different ideas, it might be difficult,
Right.
to kind of sort them into category. Would it be, I don't want to miss out. Do you feel like your ideas are captured elsewhere here? Like, do you think it would be missing if we didn't include this? Because it will be hard to sort because it contains multiple.
I think you could distill it down to just sustainability on its own, and that
I would
honestly,
agree. Yeah.
I
I
don't
would
know if
agree.
that has, I don't know if
Dollars.
that has a category
Yeah.
entirely, to be honest. I think
Would that go clean air, more trees, more sustainable open space, environmentally sound, or is it more a different resiliency thing that?
I think it's everything from, building standards to
Mhm.
and more. I mean, I think it's more than just parks and open space.
I think it would be fair to put it kind of by itself as an idea we want to keep, even though it maybe doesn't quite fit with existing categories.
It's sort of a master idea that draws many of these things underneath it.
Would resiliency be a better title and be all by itself? And is that what you really mean? Is the climate resiliency is what we're talking about? Because lots of things fall under there. That's from how we develop, how we get rid of waste, to parks, to, trees. But is it, I just want to get to the, heart of what would be the category if it didn't fall into any of those?
Yeah, I think for me, I threw this idea out there, and I think for me, it's really is just a front of mind on sustainability as this plan comes together. And yeah, I agree. It could be in maybe more of a master piece of this puzzle, but at the same time, the group can decide. So
maybe what we can do is keep it kind of off to the side, but as we continue our discussions, we kind of bring sustainability as an issue we discuss further as a group as it pertains to maybe these different concepts. Does that make sense? Folks, to do it that way, since it seems to, for a lot of people, they see it as this is an idea that connects to everything.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, so put it out here on their own.
How about the affordable housing? The expanded affordable housing for multifamily goes under. Yep.
The and sign.
The ampersand, yep.
Yep.
Okay.
I think what we don't have is a business so far. That might be a new category, right? We don't have one that's looking at keep businesses diverse, jobs and job opportunities.
Yeah.
I agree. We probably need that as separate.
The last three are all business related.
What's the difference between the percent and the and, those two columns?
Yeah, I was just thinking that.
Do you guys feel that those could be combined? Does anyone have a feeling that they should stay separate?
I think they can go together, because expanded affordable housing, I thought was going to go under percentage, and then I looked at and couldn't really determine the difference.
So, and maybe there's just one, I'm not saying it doesn't, but maybe here's something, is something like mixed use and affordable, two different things, right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of where that's the only thing with the mixed income. Well, mixed income, mixed income and affordable can be different, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
As well as diverse people and affordability.
And that's different from a variety of housing forms physically.
Yeah, so do we have all of those in the right column then, if we're going to make one mixed use and the other affordable?
I think we're just kind of getting to where now that we've got most of them bucketed, we need to now refine.
Yeah, we're running out of time, and I want to at least wrap up sorting them, and then we can always, so what our next step will be kind of naming them, and we can kind of relook at this and make sure that there isn't anything we feel like is kind of totally out of place. And then maybe we can, for the last few ideas down here, is there anywhere like kind of, because I don't want to kind of rework the whole wheel, we can kind of fine tune the end, but does anyone see recommendations for these last 4 down here in terms of where they go? And if they feel like they don't fit, we can kind of sip them off to the side and revisit them.
Well, the
So I
3 on the
think-
right are all about business.
Businesses.
We need a new column for that.
Correct.
So maybe I'll move the sustainability one kind of way up.
Yep.
And then these 3 can kind of go together.
And monorail can go into the @ sign. Because that would be an enticing new public transit experience.
Does anyone object to kind of those moves that I made, moving the 3 business ones together, or moving the monorail with, that would be the transportation, the more enticing, right? With the at
Yes.
sign. Okay. So I'm sorry, I'd hoped we would get through to naming, but I think I'm glad that we put a lot of thoughtfulness into how to group these together. And so we can kind of clean this up to get all of our ideas together, and then kind of think about what are, as we look at these ideas that we felt like went together, what is it that, you know, you all as representatives of your community have sort of common ground on, based on kind of how we group these ideas and what we kind of shared together in your vision. And I know that I think also too, some of these did kind of go more into kind of strategy, and so maybe we'll kind of parse that out a little bit of what's more vision, seems more appropriate for the vision, and what's something we might revisit when we're kind of talking about strategies and ideas that way. So maybe our homework will be to kind of organize this, maybe highlight the ideas that seem to be more strategy, not so much maybe vision, and then kind of make sure we have consensus on where we all sort of ended up here, because I know we kind of rushed at the end to make it work. Does that sound good?
Yeah, so we can send this like back out again, maybe ahead, like we'll organize a little bit, send it to everybody to kind of do some of that thinking, and then we can pick back up on it at our next meeting. And we also will have kind of more information from kind of this, again, the engagement we've been doing and some of the more of the data trends as well. That makes sense, Grace, from your...
Yeah, I think that makes sense too, to kind of, we'll all meet and kind of put that all together for the group. Yeah.
So, and you all don't have this right now, but we'll make sure you get a copy of this too.
So there's an interesting remark that Rebecca just made, saying it's interesting that no one mentioned safer hoods such as crime. And my thought is, as we were all told to focus on our top 2, maybe that's the reason crime didn't, come up possibly, but I agree.
I was thinking the exact same thing. That was on my list. It just wasn't one of the top. So
yeah.
It was hard.
That
to narrow
was
it
what
down
was
to
kind of
2.
difficult. Yeah. I think
And
we
I
all
think a
had
lot
a
of us
lot of
narrowed
similar
our
top
lists
2.
down to the same things. Yeah.
Yep.
You know, and I think one thing that's important as we move forward is to know kind of what, it seems like there's a lot of consensus on things that need to be worked on, but it is also good to identify that maybe you guys all share in terms of at least your prioritization of things, some thoughts around it, because it maybe didn't come up for everybody. So that was an interesting observation.
This kind of helps us get to these vision statements, but I think it'll be an iterative process also about what are we seeing that's coming up again in the feedback that we heard from folks, or what's in our citywide vision, but we haven't touched on it for some reason, and have those conversations. And so I think there's still opportunity to help shape these further. It just helps us kind of get these big themes out.
That makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you all for putting so much thought into this. Yeah, and to share your input.
Okay, so we'll share this back out. I'm not going to bring up the presentation again, but in the meantime, we'll continue to make kind of touch base with you all on as we try to build out the Navigator program and the engagement pieces. We'll continue to reach out to you all, or if you have events or ideas, feel free to reach out to us as well. We will need to do a doodle poll for the November and December meetings, because we wound up with this 4th Tuesday, and that kind of puts us right at holiday time for folks. So we'll send that out as well, so we can get that early and try to, I know things get kind of crazy towards that time of the year. So we'll just try to get that out to all of you. And again, the next time we'll keep working on the vision piece and share more about the early issues and opportunities and feedback that we've been hearing. So,
And Liz, is the plan to keep this virtual for still the foreseeable future?
yes. So I encourage everybody to, if you haven't and you'd like to do that virtual appointment. It's really quick with our HR department. You can just show your vaccine card. So we'll see where that kind of shakes out in terms of the ability to do in person. But for now, we'll keep it virtual so that everybody can continue to participate. And one closing thing I wanted to let everybody know, I actually have taken a new position within CPD. Yes, I know. And I'm not going anywhere right now, but I just wanted everybody to know, like probably in the next few months or so, that the transition may be happening with our team. But I'm here for the immediate term, and we'll introduce a new person as that happens. But it's, again, nothing's changing right now, but I just wanted everybody to just have that heads up that might be coming down the line.
What's the new
Anything
position?
else? It's on our supervising our rezoning team, actually. So I'm still within CPD, and I'll still interact with lots of you, I'm sure. But it was a good opportunity for me. But I'll still be here with Near Northwest for the foreseeable.
Congratulations.
Yeah,
Congrats.
Congrats. Thank you for all your work, Liz, and thank you for being so collaborative and taking my suggestions and putting them into reality. It's been such a pleasure to work with you. You know me, I rezone neighborhoods, so you'll see me a lot, but I'll see you and I'll miss you in this capacity. So thank you for your leadership. It's greatly appreciated.
We learn from the feedback. So again, as we go through these meetings, and whatever's working for you or not working for any of you, feel free to reach out and we can keep adjusting, and hopefully we'll get to meet in person at some point in the near future. So thanks, everybody.
Good night.
Thank you.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.